You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are The Breakfast Club. We got some special guests in the building. First, a legend.
Yes, royalty, rap royalty.
Absolutely, from Queens, New York, Roxanne Shante.
Yes.
Please believe it.
Absolutely.
And we have a young lady who played Roxanne Shante in the new flick, Shante Adams.
Yes.
Hello,
Now,
guys.
does her name have to be Shante?
Isn't that something?
Was
That's
that
a
part-
requirement.
You know, I'm trying to tell you now, her parents put that together for me.
Wow.
Isn't that nice?
Absolutely.
She was born for the part.
Were you looking for that for real?
Like, really, we groomed her from birth.
Yeah.
Who can say that they've done that?
But this
I
is
worked
exciting.
it out with her mom and dad. Like, listen, make me a Shante.
To
So
play
when we're
me
ready
in a
to do
movie.
this.
My goodness.
No, but I've been so excited. We've been talking about the movie coming out on Netflix March 23rd, Roxanne Roxanne,
Yes.
which I think is great that you guys decided to do. And I know Pharrell is one of the producers. So
Yes,
how
and
did that
Forrest
even
Whitaker.
come about?
Well, actually, I met Mimi Valdez and Nina Bon Jovi, and they approached me, and we were at an event, and I was hosting an event, and they were like, "Look, we want to make a movie," and I host quite a few events. I still work every weekend, so I do a lot of hosting. And so, some of the places you go, people will say things, and I was like, wow, this must be some really strong alcohol here, because like they're talking about, yeah, we're going to make a movie. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, sure, we're going to make a movie. Let's do it. So I said, here, take my number, because there was something about that spiritual connection when you automatically meet with someone, and you know how it is when you're in the industry and you meet with people. Sometimes you could tell this is going to go through, and then sometimes you could tell when it's not. And that feeling that I got from them from the very first time they said it out their mouth, I knew it was going to happen.
And Mimi Valdez brought Hidden Figures to
Yes.
Pharrell.
Yes,
And she also, I
absolutely.
remember her from editor-in-chief of Vibe magazine. So that was your
Yes.
first time meeting Mimi?
No, I
Is
had
that-
actually met Mimi before then. Of course, because in the hip hop, world is very small. A certain level of it is very small. So we meet each other and we cross paths. But when I seen her again and she was discussing the whole fact of the movie with me, the next morning we actually met, had breakfast, and then it just went on from there.
Wow.
Dope.
And I mean, when I say that it went on from there, within 18 months we're here.
I
Is
always
there
looked up
something
to
that
you.
okay.
I was going to say, I always looked up to you when I was growing up. And I was
thank you,
trying to
sweetie.
think about it when I found out this movie was happening. Has there ever been like a beef between where a woman responds to a man that tries to play her, like with Roxanne Roxanne with the UTFO crew when they first did the Roxanne song?
Right.
And then you responded, and I'm trying to think in history, has that happened where a woman does like a diss record back to the guy that's talking ish?
Well, you know what? I'm not.
I can't think of one.
I'm sure Remy Ma has done one before.
Nah, I mean, Queen
No?
Latifah was talking about some guys we didn't know
But
on
it's a
UNITY.
specific
Right.
response to a diss record from men.
You know what? I don't know. Like, I guess I wouldn't be able to say. I mean, there has been some other response records throughout history, as far as like people would make. I don't want to call them parodies, but they would actually make certain response records. Like "It's Good to Be the King" was a record, and then there was "It's Good to Be the Queen" came out behind it, and then I think Millie Jackson did a response record to some other record, "Get Into It," and then she came out with one. So no, but I think it wasn't really heard of until Roxanne's Revenge,
Right.
where everyone could really just be able to identify with the young girl walking down the street. If you're in the projects and you're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, and being able to just respond like that, everyone put themselves in a position to be Roxanne.
Right.
Now, Shante, did you have to do a crash course on all this stuff?
I did.
Hell yeah, she has.
Yes, she did.
She look like she's 19. Hell yeah,
Biggest
she
crash
did.
course of my life. I'm the youngest of four, and I have two older siblings who are hardcore hip hop fans. They're from that era, and so my oldest brother and older sister, they were the people I called immediately and was like, "Hey, what you know about Roxanne Shante?" And my sister, she's the oldest, and she's like, "I remember being in the mirror and like hearing this little girl on the radio for the first time and learning all these words and being like, I'm a rapper and I'm a girl," and then being such a big thing for the '80s. So yeah, they were my sources that I went to.
It's interesting how God works, though, because we just in this time of like woman empowerment, especially women of color, and that story. Your story has always been a woman's empowerment story. Why do you think it happened now? Why do you think the universe lined it up like that?
Well, you know what? I think what it is that a lot of times certain messages need to have a certain push behind them. And when you throw certain things out into the universe, you're going to find that those things come back just at the perfect time. Because people would say all the time, like, okay, well, you know what? You haven't made a record in 30 years. No secret. You still tour, but you still, you do venues and your hostings and everything like that. What would make a Roxanne Shante movie come out now? And the thing about it is, it's because it's the woman's time now.
Right.
And though it has always been the woman's time, it's time to come into the forefront, time to show the strength, time to show what we're made of, also to have that story told. And now you have women of strength in order to be the voice for some women who feel they can't speak up. So this movie will serve that purpose, where they can sit back and say, okay, you know what? I was that little girl in the group home. I was that little girl who went through that. I was that little girl who had daddy issues, or I was that woman who went through depression and went through a heartache or a heartbreak. So it's a time for us to be able to see that story being told, not just told to each other, because we always tell each other the story.
Right.
You know, as women, we sit here, girl, let me tell you what happened to me today, or sister, let me have one of these sister talks with you. But now it was just time to let the world know. And so I think this is why the timing came about.
What made you give up hip hop? Because you were short-lived with recording. What made you say, you know what, this is not for me?
It was not financially beneficial for me.
At the time.
At the time, right? It is good now.
It's
let
good
me
now, right?
Yeah, let me take that back before the universe start changing the checks. Let me make sure I take that one back.
Right.
But no, one of the things about it is that at that time it was not financially beneficial for me, and I had a lot of responsibility. Not only was I already a parent, already had my son, but I was responsible for my sisters. Mm-hmm. So being responsible for family members, I needed things that were financially lucrative for me, and at that time it wasn't. I was a battle rapper. I had no intentions of making records. It just so happens that Marley Marl, who happened to be one of the greatest hip-hop producers, lived across the street right above the laundromat, and I was going to do laundry. And he was like, listen, come and do a freestyle for me. And that's how this came about. There was no demo. There was no looking around for record companies. Everything literally came to me the same way how the movie came. Mm-hmm. So it's just about the things that take place in the universe. And then how she walked into my life, like just literally, I had my niece graduated from Carnegie Mellon, because now you have to understand, now she's perfectly trained. This is not something like, oh yeah, we just picked somebody. She was really literally made for the part. She graduated from Carnegie Mellon. What was it, a week before the movie?
About 5 weeks before we started shooting.
5 weeks before we started shooting is when she had just graduated. But basically, she only had how many days? 8 days?
8 days.
Before the film started, and did a wonderful job. And then breakout artists. Come on, breakout artists.
Yeah.
Breakout artists.
Thank you.
Were any of your nieces mad, though?
I am.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying she's from Detroit, too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Was any of your nieces mad that they didn't get the role?
No, you know what it is? Because, no, they weren't, because my nieces, their major was in drama.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I went to school and graduated with her niece.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
So no, my niece went for politics and political science and things like that. So no, they didn't want to do that. But are they in the movie? Yes.
Did you feel like, being in the music career, that you would never appreciate it like you should have been? Like you look at hip hop and they don't mention you that much as they should.
I mean, for me, I go back Salt and Pepper. Like when I think female rappers.
Right, and that's a problem.
I mean, of course, I'm very familiar.
Right.
But I'm saying when people talk about female rap, it don't seem to go back no farther than Salt and Pepper.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do I? No.
Why not?
And the reason why is because, Roxanne Shante has never looked or searched for the accolades from others. I've been very confident with that. I've always walked with a certain confidence. So I didn't need anyone to validate me. I validate myself every morning. So I didn't need validation from anyone. So I didn't need anyone to say, okay, well, Roxanne Shante started this. If you know that you've started something, then there's no need for anyone to tell you what you've started. See, a lot of people need that validation, but I was blessed to already have that within myself, so I didn't need that. So when people say, oh, they're doing this hip-hop show, and I'm like, okay, that's great, and I've never been angry. See, and that's where the blessings come in, because I've never been an angry person. So I don't see others who have, achieved certain things and say, okay, well, what, that should have been mine. That should have been mine. That should have been mine. Because that is really a horrible stigma that they have on old school artists, that they feel like we're all angry, or we're all hungry, or we're all angry or mad, and we're not. So when you have ones like me, that's when opportunities like a movie comes along out of nowhere, a Netflix deal comes along out of nowhere, and people say, well, how did that happen? And you say, well, how could it not? Because I've always been able to wait my turn and understand that when it's time for Roxanne Shante, it's time for Roxanne Shante. And when it's time for others, it is time for me to be supportive and be supportive of others. And so that's what I do, and that's how I live life.
Now,
But
let
you
me
want
ask you
history to
this.
be accurate, though, right?
We want history to be accurate, absolutely, and that's the reason why we must tell our own stories. But we don't get the opportunity to do so. So, if you feel that sometimes hip hop, they'll say, well, females in hip hop started with Salt and Pepper. And honestly, the plateau that they took hip hop to, you must understand, before me, there was Shy-Rock. So let's say Shy-Rock had it in the park.
Right.
Then I took it from the park and I put it on wax.
Right.
Then I took it from, then with me putting it on wax, Salt and Pepper took it to the stadiums, and then from the stadiums, you know, Nicki took it to a certain level.
Arenas. National.
And then from arenas, let's just say Remy took it to merchandising and branding, and then you know Cardi took it to, you know, pop charts and this one. So everyone comes in and makes their contribution, and you need to understand where you are your contributor, where you contribute the most. So if mine was the beginning, if it was my job to hold the door open, somebody else's job to walk in, somebody else's job to sit at the desk, and the other person's job to make the deal, then so be it.
That's real.
It's when you come out of that,
Right.
you know, that's when the problem starts.
But everybody gets celebrated. We want to make sure you do as well.
Thank
you know,
you so
Cardi
much.
does.
Thank
you know,
you.
Nicki, Foxy.
Well, she
Salt
got a
Pepper.
movie.
But yeah, she does have a movie. About time, right?
But now let me ask you some questions, because I definitely, like I said, grew up listening to Roxanne Shante and the whole UTFO crew. So for people who don't know the story, right, how did the diss record come about? Because in my eyes as a child, I thought you really was going at them. I didn't know it was like a orchestrated type of thing where they knew the
You
diss
explained the
record
full
was
story.
coming.
There's a lot of kids
so
out there that have no idea what
That's
you're
why I'm
talking
asking
about.
her to
Okay.
explain it now. So can you talk about how it actually came about and what happened?
Okay. Well, I was I had just recently had returned out of the group home, which is no secret. You know, most people know that. So one of the things about it was being in Queensbridge Public Housing, which is the largest housing project in the world. There's always going to be music. There was always music around. So DJ Molly Mall, who happened to be one of the greatest producers, lived above the laundry. So I was going to do my laundry one day. He called out the window. He was like, "Listen, Shani, I heard," because they call me Shani. "Listen, Shani, I heard that you know, a great battle rapper. Come up here. I got this beat. I want to hear you spit something on it." When I came to his house, he was playing the big beat, which was boom, boom, bap, boom, boom, bap. So I said, he's like, "Yeah, you heard that new Roxanne record?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Listen, spit something for me real quick." I said, "Okay." "Well, my name is Roxanne. Don't you know?" So it was a complete freestyle, 7-minute freestyle, because I was known to be very well at telling stories that made sense.
Right.
So he was like, "Okay, we gave her a subject. The subject was Roxanne. She created Roxanne." I left it alone. Went back downstairs, completely doing my laundry. The next day, in the middle of the night, rather, someone had called me because he was on another radio station at the time, and he had played the record on the radio. And they called my house in the middle of the night. Now, you know, I come from a time when there was only one phone in the house.
One phone, and you can't answer
And that
after
was
late.
and that was like by the kitchen with that long cord
Yep.
that rang really loud. So, you know, I'm racing to the phone because it's like, I'm hoping nobody's crank calling or anything like that, because, you know, me and my mom's, it was like one of those moments at the time. So I grabbed the phone. They're like, "Are you on the radio?" I hung up. And I remember that whole entire night sitting there by the phone to make sure, because you had to pinch it out to make sure it didn't ring.
I remember that.
Yeah, because, you know, if you kept it pinched in, you know, it's still gonna ring. But if you held the thing down, it was still gonna ring.
Right.
So you had to just pinch it out. You know, no slide, no lever. So, and I pinched it out, and I'm standing there, and I was saying to myself, like, wow, I wonder what I sound like on the radio. The next day, when I walked out of my building, I was Roxanne Shante.
Damn.
Wow.
That fast.
He was on BLS then, right?
No, he was on WHBI, where you had to have the hanger and put the hanger in the window and try to tune the radio station. So it was one of those radio stations that I guess one of the late night, after midnight type stations. But you would stay up because this was the love of hip hop. Everyone would stay up late at night, and you would have the radio turned down so low so that you could record the show, because you couldn't play it loud. That's respectful for homes. It's like back in the days when you couldn't play your radio as loud as you wanted to any time of night. So you would listen to the radio and you would record the show, so everyone would record it, and they recorded it that night. And the next day, people would play it on their radio. And that's how it spread.
Young Shante, that's the equivalent of trending now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's streaming.
Oh, yeah, and streaming.
Now, you said you didn't get money back then. Was it because people didn't know the music business?
You know what? People take full advantage of what you don't know, especially when you come into the industry. And you know, I went into the industry with blinders on, literally just not knowing. But it was also a blessing for me. You know, people say, "Well, aren't you angry at the fact that they didn't pay you or they didn't give you the things that you were supposed to get?" Honestly, no, I'm not, because 14 years old, I was making enough money to buy sheepskins for everybody. Everybody could shop on Delancey. Everybody had brand new sneakers. My rent was paid, and the kids had food. So I didn't have enough money left over to get high, use drugs, and do those things. So, you know, sometimes some things are a blessing in disguise, you know, and that happened to be one of them.
That record sold, though.
Yeah, it did.
And I got to ask you this. There was also the real Roxanne.
Yes.
And that got confusing.
Yes.
Because there was Roxanne Shante,
And then
and
the
then there
real
was the real.
Roxanne.
So was that real beef, or was?
You know, the I guess what it was with that was the fact that the record company saw how much money the Roxanne's Revenge was making, so they wanted to create their own Roxanne. So they was like, listen, we have our own Roxanne that we, and she's the real She's the real Roxanne. Mm-hmm. And to prove to you that she's the real Roxanne, first things first, they started to tell everything that they knew about me. So they was like, well, no one would really go after a girl from the group home. She has all of this bushy hair. Like at that time, I had like this wild bushy hair. Mm-hmm. And, I had like a little bit of a tomboy edge to me. So they were like, no, that's not the type of girl that they would go after. They would go after this light-skinned girl with the straight hair. And this is the real Roxanne. We don't know who the other Roxanne is. So, and then what I did, because I was a battle rapper by nature. And then also, there were certain things about me that would allow me to be like, okay, well, listen, where's she going to be at? I'm going to go to a show. Mm-hmm. And then if she pick up the microphone, I'm going to get her. Or if, I'm going to pull out plugs and do this. So that's the reason why she was having a difficulty performing, because I would show up and show
make
out.
Her nervous.
Put that pressure on her.
Baby.
And this was real. This wasn't
and that was real. That
right.
wasn't orchestrated at all. Now me and Kango happen to be very good friends, but back then we really weren't. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things like, okay, well, you could get it too. We had that type of mentality then. And they wanted to make sure that people felt that, okay, we're going to divide and conquer. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make everybody think this is the real Roxanne. And it caused a whole whirlwind as far as even promoters. Because when they would book her and she would get up there, they'd be like, man, that ain't the Roxanne that I wanted.
Right.
Damn it, man.
Because that was confusing even for me.
I
was like, okay, what's going on here?
I never even know what she looked like. How about that?
There were two of them. They actually had two of them. They had one that was the real Roxanne, and then they had one that they came up with and called her. No, they said the original Roxanne, then they came up with the real Roxanne. So one was a light-skinned one, and then when the light-skinned girl didn't work out well enough, they went and got a Spanish girl.
So all this is in the movie, right? All this is in the movie?
No, some of it is in the movie. Yes, you have to see the movie.
Yeah, I saw you talk about that in Essence. So I was like, why did you pick Shante? Because she's a little fairer skin, I guess.
You know what? Honestly, to tell you the truth, we have such similar features, and her talent spoke for itself.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
But also when I look at her, I see a young Shante. Like when I look at her, I saw my bushy curly hair and my eyes and my smile. And so sometimes you really want to look at the characters, the artists that you get to portray these characters, and the last thing you want them to say is, she don't even look like her. Right. And she does, and even so much so that when she would do certain scenes, it was almost like an out-of-body experience for me. It was almost scary for me, because she would be in a certain scene, and here I am, because I'm executive producer of the movie also. So
there you go.
So I'm like, cut, and they like, listen, them cuts cost money. She's okay. She's a professional. I was like, you all right? You okay? She's like,
I was
yeah.
okay.
She's like, I'm okay. I'm in the scene. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, all right now, because what I went through, there was no one to help the real Roxanne Shante. So unfortunately, sometimes seeing certain things portrayed, especially on screen, but before they get on screen, you're watching them happen right there in front of you. Right. You're like, cut, wait a minute, listen, I can help this time. Like, are you okay? And they like, listen, those cuts cost money. You cutting into your check. Stop cutting. I was like, okay, you got it from here? All right, no more cuts.
So was it hard for you to watch some of the things that you had to relive during this movie?
It was very difficult, but it was also very therapeutic. It was, because it allowed me to relive some things that I didn't want to relive, but also allowed me to embrace and enjoy the fact of surviving it.
At what point did you and your mom ever, like, I guess, get on good terms? Because you can see y'all had a real rocky relationship.
I think we were never on bad terms. I think what it was my mom was dealing with the fact of, she felt that she had let us down. And for any woman and for any mother out there, or any parent, the worst feeling in the world is to feel like you let your children down. And no matter what we said, or no matter how well we did, she still felt like, I should have did this, or I could have done this, or why didn't I do this? So I think it was just a guilt. So we were never on bad terms. We still have a wonderful relationship today. Like, I love my mom. I still eat her cooking when things are going kind of crazy for me. I still want beans and cornbread. I'm that type of girl, But one of those things that happened is, I understood as I got older. I really came to understand what took place.
What gave you that hustler mentality? Because, you left the game at 25, but then you never stopped. Like, you became a speaker and going around the country speaking to students. Then, you opened up an ice cream parlor in Queens, and then you always give back. What gave you that hustler mentality where it's not, because most people have been like, it's all about the music, but you took it outside of that.
Because I think it's in the water in Queens. Like if you're from Queens, it's something in the water. I think you're born with that hustle mentality. You're gonna make it happen. But also, it had a lot to do with parental pressure very early in life. You know, I don't think I ever got a chance to really be a child. So I was always thinking about how to provide, how to make sure everybody was okay. And because of that, you get this natural hustler's instinct on how to do it. And being from Queens is also a blessing also. Not saying, I don't want to just limit it to just Queens, but I had some great, you know, influences in Queens. But I also want to say just being from New York, you know, the whole statement, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere,
right.
you know, and that's true.
Now, do you have your PhD?
No, sir.
You don't? Okay.
No,
Because
I don't.
people thought you were a doctor, but I'm like, she talks like she's a doctor. God
I
damn.
know that's right.
You can
better-
be educated
let me
without
tell you
having a
something.
degree, though.
Absolutely. I mean, you better say it. One of the things about it, and I also take a lot of pride in that because there's a lot of worse things to be called than a doctor. You know, I mean, there's a lot of worse things that people can call you than a doctor. You know, so I guess when you do that, you don't even correct it. You're like, well, okay, you know, I don't mind that. You know, that's great.
Right.
Shante,
That's hip hop.
What was your hip hop pedigree before this? What were you into?
I mean, I was just a lover of rap music.
Big Sean, you went to Cass
Oh,
Tech.
of course. That's like family, even though I don't really know him like that. But, you know, you come from the same school, the same place, the same neighborhood almost. You feel connected. He was such an inspiration to people like me at school. And we come from the same drama teacher and just all that kind of stuff. But I was just a lover of rap music for real. And that's kind of what helped me get the role was driving back and forth from school. I would listen to rap albums with Nicki, Drake, and I would try to match their voices.
Did you rap? Did you rap as?
I mean, I don't really call myself a rapper, you know.
Did you try? Did you have a rap name?
Oh, can we hear you?
No.
Can we hear you spit a Roxanne Shante verse?
You got to.
What you want to hear?
Roxanne's Revenge, of course. That's it.
Well, my name is Roxanne.
Hey.
Don't you know? I just a cold rock a party and I do this show.
Wow.
What did you learn about the culture doing this? Because that's what I'm very intrigued by. What are the kids gonna learn from watching this film?
I think they're gonna learn their history or her story about, you know, females in the rap game. I hope that female rappers of my generation who are my age look at this Roxanne Shante story and know that they aren't alone, that you know, whatever they're going through, they can overcome it. And I think that's what she represents. And just for women in general too, and not just the female rappers. But I'm really excited for my generation to be able to see this movie so that they can know about her and know about the music that they love, where their inspiration comes from.
It seems like you didn't have this planned. Like, did you ever have any thoughts about doing a movie?
No.
Wow.
Wow.
I didn't even have any thoughts about being a rapper.
So it was just Mimi walking up on you that day saying your story should be a movie.
Mimi walked into my life the same way Marley walked into my life.
Wow.
And now I'm just waiting for a publisher to walk into my life so that I can put this book out there.
Oh, we can make that happen.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
light work.
What
See,
did
look
Mi-
at that. See,
Yeah, we
look,
can make that
look,
happen.
and then
We can
that
make
worked.
that
Look, and then that just walked into my life.
We can make that happen. What did Mimi know about your story? Like, she's from Queens or something?
You know what it is? Mimi knows hip hop.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, Mimi knows hip hop in and out. So because of that, she was like, and she knows the story. So she said, you know, this has to be told. Just as women, when we sit down and we have conversations, she was like, yeah, this needs to be told. They need to know this because somewhere right now is a female rapper in the beginning stages of her career wondering what should she compromise in order to possibly achieve this.
Right.
Not guaranteed to achieve this, but what could she do to possibly achieve this? And then how can she handle it if she doesn't get it?
I was going to ask you that. Everything we were seeing in the industry now as far as the Me Too and Time's Up movement, I'm sure that was happening then.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, when you look at my story, just look at the fact that I'm 14 years old, and every man that I would meet, whether they were 8 years old or 80 years old, the whole line was, Roxanne, Roxanne, I want to be your man. And then you're being told that you must smile, and then you're in an industry where people are drinking and people are taking drugs. So sometimes their behavior, you know, because the first thing somebody will say to you the next morning is, oh, I was so sorry about that. You know, I was drinking. And then you're 14 years old, and you have to adjust and mentally learn how to deal with that. And see the signs of certain things before they happen. Like, okay, listen, I could tell that this is getting ready to be an issue. I need to get up from this table, but I don't go on till 2 o'clock in the morning. So where am I going to go to try to avoid this circumstance in the middle of the night in a club?
Right.
You know. So,
Yeah, and in the trailer, they show your mom checking this older dude. Like,
yeah.
why was that more acceptable then to be out with an older guy?
It really wasn't.
Okay.
That's why you need to see the movie so that you can understand how he came into my life. A lot of times, if the hustler or the drug dealer, whoever it is, that's coming around artists after the show is over, because that's where they used to be more common. Right after the show's over, they want to be there because whatever money the artist made, they would get.
They would get their cut, right?
Exactly, because automatically, listen, I got something for you. What is it you need? So when that guy comes around and he's popular with everyone else, they tend to turn a blind eye to whatever it is that's going on because he is the one that they want to see all the time. So they don't want to disrupt him. And, he happened to be that one for me, and so people kind of like turned a blind eye to it. And it was sad because as we got older and when we became parents of daughters, I looked at them differently and said, but your 14-year-old daughter, would you let her do that? Your 13-year-old daughter, would you tell her to accept that? But because there was no father on the scene for me, because there wasn't no parents involved at that time, the main factor was you thought it was okay for that to happen to me. But now, as a father with your own daughter, would you allow that? Would you want that?
Right.
And they couldn't answer. And so that really changed a lot of relationships that I had in the industry once I became the mother of a daughter. Because I had my son when I was a teenager, so I already had my son. But once my daughter reached a certain age and I felt that certain feeling, I said to myself, like, wait a minute, let me just ask them this question. And so that's what I did. No anger. What about this? How could y'all do this? I just said, listen, your daughter, I just want to know what you told me to do at 14, what you told me to do at 15, 16, 17 years old. Would you have your daughter do those things?
That's
I just
real.
want to know. And that's it.
And the answer is always hell no.
Right. So now, I'm not angry with you, but I just need you to understand our distance now.
Right.
I need you to understand why I feel the way I feel about you now. I'm never going to be disrespectful. I'm never going to back away from you. I may not even stop, caring, but the reason why we can no longer interact the way we did is because I just wanted you to understand the question and understand your answer to that question and why was it different when it was me.
Gotcha.
What do you think about in this industry? It seems like women are always being pitted against each other. As far as hip hop, you see with Lil' Kim and Foxy, you see people always starting these beefs with
Nicki,
women who are
Remy.
artists. Yeah, and it happens all the time. And obviously it happened with you.
Yes.
With the real Roxanne and Roxanne Shante. What do you think about that? It makes it seem like there can only be one at a time.
Well, I think what it is the fact that for back in the days, and I don't think it still stands today, so today it's really not needed. But back in the days, the reason why they did that is because so that we would not educate each other. See, if you made $10,000 a show and they were stealing from me and I was only getting $2,000 a show, I wouldn't know that unless I got a chance to talk to you. So if they keep us separated, I'll never know. I'll never know what's publishing. I'll never know what's writers. I'll never know how to register with ASCAP because see, your company is doing those things for you.
Right.
So they need to keep me from having that one lunch with you. Because all it takes is one lunch.
That's it.
One lunch is all you need to be educated.
Absolutely.
One lunch with the right person. One lunch will do it for you. So if we say, okay, you know what, let's meet up, let's do lunch. All of a sudden, everyone will get in a full panic. Can't let them do lunch. Don't let them do. If they are going to do lunch, send somebody with them. And then send somebody with them to make sure that they can't do lunch. Come on, we got to go. Oh, yeah, listen, she don't like you. Oh, listen, she don't want. The same way, then that doesn't just take place in the industry. That takes place in life.
Yes, yes.
That
all
takes
the
place
time.
in life. So that's not just an industry lesson. That's a life lesson that people will want to make sure that you are no longer attached to those who will educate you. It's like getting in a bad relationship and they don't want you attached to your family any longer, not because they don't understand that that's your blood and that's your relationship, but because your family might see something that you don't want to see.
Absolutely.
And they're going to be the ones to tell you. So that's the same thing that was taking place in the industry. Now today, that's not necessary because as the women that you see in hip hop today, first of all, your contracts are so lucrative. If you're smart, you're still on top of your game with your lawyers. You have no excuse for it to be the way it was with Roxanne Shante. Before there was the 360 deal, there was the Roxanne Shante deal, which meant I had the 360 before they even thought about giving a name to it.
Right.
They was like, look, we can't call it the Roxanne deal. We'll just call it the 360. But in all reality, this is where we're going to say that, it came from where your management and your accountant are best friends. Then your lawyer and your manager went to school together. and then your manager is your manager but owns the record company. There's no need for that now.
Right.
The internet is no need for that. Even if you go on the internet and just look up anything, we didn't have any of that. So that's the reason why they try to keep the women so separated, is the fact that because we educate and empower each other when we're together. And they just don't want that.
Wow.
On just some strictly hip hop shit, just
Let's do
a
it.
fan of the culture.
Let's do
Were you
it.
disappointed when Nicki didn't reply back to Remy?
As a battle rapper, I'm going to say that, I love my sisters. I love all of them. And as with my real sisters, when my hip hop sisters fight, I don't necessarily dig it, because I want to see them unified. I want to see them get together because I know how much they can do for the culture together. But as with my real sisters, some sisters win, some sisters lose. There's been times when one of my sisters happened to get on top of the other, and he was like, "Oh, why you on top? Okay, now we got to break it up." You know what I'm saying? Because mommy's getting ready to come, so I got to break it up right now. But when mommy leave, y'all can go back at it because you got to make sure you get back on her because And as a battle rapper, I was sitting there like, okay, so now what happens next? Because we know that in the household, we're going to say that Remy is very strong in the household. So she would be like my stronger sister, which would be like me. So, and then we'll have, we'll say, okay, well, you know what? When it comes to Nicki, you want to be able to say, okay, look, get your creativity. What's the matter? Go ahead, get back in there. What are you doing? And that's just as a battle rapper.
Right.
But as a female rapper and a lover of my sisters, I don't like to see them go at it at all.
All right.
I don't.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing this Netflix
I
joint,
can't wait. I
March
know what I'm doing this
23rd.
weekend.
Listen,
Roxanne.
I'm gonna have a
A
party
lot of
at my
pressure
house
on you,
tonight.
Shantae Adams.
Just a little bit.
A lot of pressure.
She can handle it. She's good.
And you got to work with Nia Long on your first feature in
I
a movie.
did on my first
Absolutely.
movie.
And
And Mahershala Ali.
Yes.
Oh, that's
See?
amazing.
Yeah.
You're blessed.
I couldn't have asked for a better cast.
Right. Bigger and better things for you. Well, not better, but big things for
There
you.
you go.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
Roxanne
you so much.
Shante and Shante Adams, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to seeing it.
Please believe it, baby.
It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.